Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Veerman, and I'm here with my friend and producer, Max Kerman.
Hello, Michael.
But Max, this is a special episode because you're not the only one here for the opening.
No, we're switching it up a little bit.
Also here in the pod studio is my younger brother, Greg Veerman.
Hello.
How's it
Hello
going?
to both of you.
Yes, you know us.
Thanks
both.
for having me.
Our pleasure. The reason we're having Greg on the show today is because our featured guest is Will Butler, and his brother, of course, is the lead singer of the Arcade Fire, Win Butler. It's a brother theme, Max.
That's right. Yeah, we need to bring you in to tie it all together, Greg.
We were just actually discussing before we started rolling that Max and I, for those of you that are listening and have followed us, we hosted the Much Music Countdown.
Yeah, it's typically hosted by Liz Trenier and Tyrone.
Yeah.
But they were given the week off, and they let us do it. But we PVR'd the episode. And Greg...
Full disclosure, I actually haven't seen... I've seen the first two segments, and then I haven't seen the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So you watched it with Greg?
Yeah, so for our listeners, Greg is Mike's brother, but he's also my roommate. And so Greg and I watched it on PVR the other day. So Greg, what was your reaction to the show?
Well, I liked it. You guys are good.
Here we go.
This is the story of Mike's life.
Yeah,
Mike puts himself out there to do something, and Greg kind of rolls his eyes.
Yeah.
And I'll say that Mike, so they were in a band together called San Sebastian, and then Mike would be singing this heartfelt ballad on stage, and Greg, who's the bass player, would sit behind Mike and just make funny faces at the crowd, just really taking the piss out of him as he's pouring his heart out on stage.
Yeah, but they loved it. That's why I was the favorite. I was like... I was like Ringo, you know.
You were like Ringo. So yeah. So what did you make of our TV debut?
You guys are great. You know, it was just I can tell when you guys are on is the thing. So it's like for me, I'm not the best guy to ask because you guys are. I can just tell when it's like
when we're putting on our show faces.
You're putting on the show, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, like it's like do that same thing, you know, in a bar at like midnight, and it's like, you know, it's looser, it's funny.
You thought we were a little uptight, maybe.
Uptight. It's like
You thought we were too hammy for your tastes?
a little too hammy for my taste. Yeah, you're hamming it up for the cameras. What you have to do, I guess. You know, you just can't be a cool guy on the countdown.
This is my life, Max.
Yeah.
Every time I do something, this is how I...
I know it's hard. Well, the thing about Greg and I talk a lot about pop culture is that who's your holy trinity, Greg? Would you say for like dudes that like you look up to and think are the coolest of the cool? Who would you say at the top of the triangle?
Top of the list, we got Tim Fletcher from the Stills.
So for our listeners, the Stills are also one of my favorite bands, but sort of a semi-known indie band from
It's
Montreal.
very Greg to have Tim Fletcher at the top of his triangle.
Jose Miguel Contreras, By Divine Right.
And by the way, I also love By Divine Right, but I don't think any of our listeners probably... I don't think Much Music has played a By Divine Right video since 1997. Continue.
All right. Wait, who else is up there? Oh, I think that Luca Londa is very cool. He's pretty young and hip.
I guess the point we're trying to make is that Greg has very indie tastes, and when hams like Mike and myself are being compared to like the coolest indie cred guy on the block, it's hard to compete.
You can't win.
But
You'll always seem lame and needy by comparison.
I'll get a text from Greg going like, "Yo, did you see Tim Fletcher's like Instagram? He's wearing a cool black jacket. You should check that out."
Actually, speaking of Greg and his critiques, so I was at H&M the other day, and I was kind of looking around. I was trying to get some props for a shoot, actually, that I was doing for Much. But I noticed these cargo pants, and they looked good on the mannequin. So I'm like, oh, man, I haven't worn cargo pants since, like, the late 90s. I'm like, maybe it's time to bring them back. So I buy them, whatever.
And you should say H&M is carrying them now. It's not like a totally, like, out of left field.
No.
It's like H&M's, like, a pretty populist urban, like, clothing store.
Sure. Am I that crazy to buy some cargos?
From H&M? No.
I didn't think so, Max. And then I wore them into work, and the first thing that happens is my brother Greg and our pop culture aficionado Shane Cunningham immediately. What was it? What did you say to me?
Shane came up. He was like, "Hey, Ice Cube, how's it going?"
They were a little baggier than I guess I anticipated. So I was wearing like a polo shirt and some boots and a toque. I didn't think it was that jarring, but I had to basically endure a whole day of Greg and Shane making fun of my baggy pants. And then like notice a day later when I went on Snapchat that they were snapping me walking around the office to send to everybody on their Snapchat of me in my baggy pants. Needless to say, I haven't worn them since. Brothers, man.
Brothers.
Max, do you ever wish you had a brother?
No, because I got you as my brothers. You know,
Aww.
seriously, I got like 15 brothers that I hang out with all the time.
That's the sort of sweet, heartwarming thing that makes Greg sick.
No, I like it because I'm part of the Brotherhood. I like it.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm not a part of this podcast. When I see you guys on the countdown, I'm like, whatever. Guys. Yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, curious, Greg, because you've been in bands with your brother and you grew up with your brother, but what's it like to work with your brother? That's sort of, a lot of people don't get to work with their siblings.
Just to frame things for our listeners, for those of you who don't know, Greg also works at for the Bell Creative Agency as a producer and writer.
But this isn't our first job together. We've worked together. We had 2 jobs.
Okay.
We at one point in our lives, we worked at Silver City Ancaster as working in the Taco Bell.
We did.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to have your favorite movie listed on underneath your name tag?
We did, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Greg, what was your favorite movie?
Stand By Me.
Ooh, yeah. Greg is sort of like a sentimental guy in a funny kind of way. And you?
American Beauty.
Whoa.
I was a deep 17-year-old, man.
Did you really, at the time, were you like, I'm making a statement?
I just really loved it. I actually just thought it really moved me.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
it wasn't like a cred move?
It was in the back of my mind. I was like, some smart girl's gonna come in here and she'll see that,
And she'll be very
be like,
impressed.
"Ooh, American Beauty." You know, everybody else had like Encino Man or Billy Madison, mostly Shane. But
And you love Taco Bell, too. Did you eat a lot of the Taco Bell?
I gained 15 pounds working there. What we would do is they had like all of these RBOs, retail business outlets. So you'd have the Taco Bell, you'd have
Industry slang, I like
the industry slang. You know, we got to keep it real on this podcast. You'd have the Taco Bell, you'd have the New York fries, you'd have the Wetzel's pretzels, and you'd have the Pizza Hut.
Nice.
I worked all of them. I was a fast riser at the old Silver City. Greg, did you work anything other than Taco Bell?
Well, I was still in high school at the time, so I can work in the days like you. So I just show up for my shift 3 times a week, sometimes.
Right. So I had more time to learn.
And how did you guys leave the job?
I got fired. It was like, because it was a seasonal job, so I had it from like, October until, it was like a 3-month contract.
Okay.
But then Christmas time kind of comes around, everyone's hanging out. I don't really want to work. Everyone's playing pond hockey. So I was supposed to go to a shift, and then, but my friends after school were like, we're going to go play pond hockey at the park. So I was like, oh, that sounds fun, but I got to work. I don't know. And then I was like, I'm only 16. I'll probably get another job at some point in my life. So I was like, I'm going to play hockey now because I'm going to remember this more. So then I went and played hockey, and I called in sick from the pond hockey park, or the park. And it was like a wind blowing in a Nokia cell phone that I was just playing Snake on or something. And it was like, and it was like, I was like, oh, I'm not feeling so good today, boss. And then
It's like, pass the puck.
yeah, it was like you could hear that in the background. And then my next shift, I went and they fired me. So. Yeah.
Well, Silver City is ruthless. They fired Shane in an earlier episode. They fired Greg.
Oh, yeah.
How did you leave the job, Mike?
Well, I was also let go at the end of my 3-month tenure.
Okay.
But I would goof around. Like, basically, if I had friends come in, I would hook them up with free tacos from the Taco Bell.
Nice.
And
By the way, I got fired from Eastside Mario's because, for a number of reasons, but one, because I gave away so much of the free bread.
Can you give away free bread?
Here's the thing. Yeah, if your friends come in and don't order anything and you just keep on bringing bread to the table and like Coca-Cola, then you can get fired.
So we've all been fired at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Oscar-nominated brothers, Max, we interviewed Will Butler.
We did. Yeah, I was back for this interview.
You were in the room for this one, and we'll get to that. Actually, one thing, since Greg, you're here, Greg was actually the first one to show me Arcade Fire.
Really?
Years and years ago.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I do remember. I remember being in Toronto. It was like 2004, 2005, and their funeral record was on the year-end list for a month, and I hadn't got around to it yet. And I remember like finally listening to it and just thinking it was incredible.
It was like in our car early on, because Greg has always been sort of like an early finder of music, and again, we've discussed his sort of elitist indie tastes.
Yeah, that's right.
And
he's
that
ahead of
was
the curve, though.
He was, and that was one of the benefits because it was like always on in our car.
Thank you.
Along with Mellow Grove Band.
I do love the Lily Grove Band.
Another name to the list, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we interviewed Will, and this was actually one of our sort of very early interviews, and it was sort of intimidating because, I mean, the guy's been nominated for an Oscar. He's in the Arcade Fire, which is one of the biggest bands in the world.
He rolls in fine company.
I agree.
And here's actually kind of an interesting thing is despite the fact that, we know lots of band people, we've both played in bands, when you see somebody, you know, out and about who sort of lives in that sort of like elite status world,
like the hierarchy of bands, it's a rare air.
Yeah. And someone who's like, you know, who is a founding member of the Arcade Fire, who's very like sort of culturally respected. Like I still find myself getting a little bit intimidated, even though once you get to meet any of these people, like you just realize, oh, they're just another person, right? Like
absolutely.
And there's something very humanizing and great about that.
There's something very high school about the cool kids though. It's like, oh, I'm sitting with the cool kids this lunch. Yeah. Don't ruin it. Don't blow it.
Yeah. A lot of times, you know, people's upbringing and experience aren't as different as you think they are necessarily. But you still, because of whatever they've accomplished, you still can find yourself a little bit intimidated.
And this sort of like almost even like created mythology that you maybe like impose on them. That isn't even their that's your hang up.
No, it's totally your hang up.
Yeah.
Which is, because I think one of the things about the interview is that he's a little goofier than you might expect. It's like, because the Arcade Fire sort of has like a reputation for being sort of serious art rockers, despite the fact that they play in arenas now. But he sort of has like a kind of a goofy sense of humor.
So, again, this is one of those interviews that takes place at Much. We end up in a boardroom. It's me and you. We're sort of sitting there waiting for him to come in. He rolls in wearing a sweater that says his name on it.
His name on it. That's his show gear now.
Yeah.
Which I kind of liked. I thought it was kind of funny.
And it kind of like, well, it's that thing where it's like it either relieves the tension or maybe he's more pretentious than you think.
Is it a put on, or is it like, is he really trying to like express himself or something in some way that you don't understand?
So it's like, I guarantee you though that you and I were thinking way more.
Too much about it.
Yeah, exactly. One
it's
thing,
like, dude,
though,
I just got a sweater made with my name on it.
Yeah,
like,
it's funny. Calm down.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Yeah.
Which is funny because Max is wearing an Arkell shirt right now.
Will talked about being nominated for an Oscar, working with Spike Jonze, being in a band with his brother, all sorts of fascinating and sort of insightful stuff for anyone that's listening. So, Greg, do you have anything to say before we get to Will Butler?
Who's the cooler brother, Will or Win?
Will. Let's go with Will. Will Butler for president.
Said like a classic younger brother.
All right, let's get to it.
Are you in the podcast at all?
I am.
What do you listen to?
I listen to Slate as a language podcast.
Oh yeah, Lexicon Valley. Yeah, I love that one.
And Song Exploder. I just did a Song Exploder. You ever heard that one?
I've heard of it. I've never listened to
that's
it.
good.
Oh,
They break down songs like with the people, and they give them the stems, and they like go through the song.
Oh, cool.
About, like, drums sound and everything.
I'm supposed to be producing. We've joked that I should bring like a fake board.
Mixing board. You just got to make sure the red light's on.
So a little more compression, maybe.
So you could get material now. Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into it. From your new record to Arcade Fire to scoring film, you seem like a really versatile musician. Musically and creatively, what do you consider your specialty? Do you have one? Is there something you lean towards?
I've only recently have I begun to think of myself as a musician, and I've always just thought of myself as a person doing stuff.
Right.
And to me, I kind of think we're going through a golden age of folk art, like all this stupid internet stuff up and all that's amazing, and all the podcasts and all the everything, and just people are making stuff, and I feel like I am part of like a folk art renaissance, which means I'm good at nothing.
Right.
But I do it all.
Even more like the DIY sort of, you can just create.
I mean, it's not even particularly DIY because I have so many expert friends and engineers and people around to like help realize an idea. But yeah, I mean, I guess it all is equivalent in my brain, like drawing a stupid drawing to post on Twitter and recording the music to a song and like thinking about lyrics are not disparate worlds. They come from the same push to like create something for people.
Would you say that's how this record came about? I mean, were these like sort of gems you had lying around for a couple of years, or was it a concerted effort to create this record specifically?
So there were a few songs that were gems that had been lying around for a little while, and then I had a pile of songs that were mostly finished, and I picked ones that felt like I could do them quickly and do them justice quickly, and then I wrote the rest of the album around that. Mm-hmm. In a way, just kind of to not waste, just can't waste any time.
That's an interesting thought because I guess, Arcade Fire, they put out a record about every 3 years,
Yeah.
and then there's a lot of downtime. So, I mean, when you're in sort of a band of that magnitude, for some people, they love the downtime. They're like, we're going to do a record, we're going to tour, and then I'm going to hang out for a while.
Yeah.
Are you somebody that feels the need to kind of constantly be busy and working and creating?
Well, only recently has Arcade Fire figured out the right balance, where we used to tour till collapse and then rest until bored out of your mind, and then record until you hate music, and then tour until you collapse. And now we've, at least on the touring side, we've kind of learned the balance of how much to tour. And then, so when the end of this tour was approaching, the Reflector tour that ended last year, I realized I didn't need a year off. I just was like, oh, I'm still young. I can do things. But normally, you want downtime to engage with the world and feel artistic. But we've kind of figured it out enough that now I can be on tour and still feel like a human being.
Right,
engaged with the world.
So in the past, maybe the downtime wasn't as much, and then this one you were like, I know how to manage that time. It's going to be a lot longer.
Yeah, I had it figured out a bit more.
Aside from just sort of doing this record, was being the sole creative voice for this record something that was important to you, coming from collaborative?
Yeah, very much so, and that's partly why I stuck my name on it so baldly. Will Butler.
Yeah.
You're wearing a shirt, too.
Yeah, for those that can't see, which I don't know how you would in a podcast, he's wearing a sweater that says Will.
And just because it's good to take responsibility. I mean, it's like makes it a little riskier.
The stakes are higher when you're
Yeah,
doing
the stakes
design.
are higher. And I wanted, because I don't feel like I was hiding behind Arcade Fire, but I felt like I could have been hiding behind Arcade Fire and just been like, oh, I don't need to do anything because my legacy is taken care of. But I wanted to do something that at least was a little bit like stepping off into the great abyss. Sploosh.
I guess going back a little bit, your grandfather was an acclaimed musician.
Yeah.
Your mother is a musician. You grew up in the South. What kind of music was floating around your household growing up? Was music like sort of a big part of your upbringing?
We didn't listen to a ton of records. We listened to Thriller. Thriller was on a lot because I think everyone listened to Thriller, I believe.
Was your mother's a classical musician though?
She's a jazz musician and a classical music. Like she played a lot of Bach, and she would play bossa nova on the harp, and she would play rock and roll on the piano. Like she was in she would lead blues bands and rock and roll bands and jazz bands and stuff. So she was all over the place. So there's a lot of her music, and then we would. We'd sing Christmas music and sing church music. And,
right.
And Thriller was there sometimes, but we just didn't put on records that much. I think it was we were too busy living.
But outside of music, outside doing things that kids do growing up, but not sort of super focused on music.
Well, it was, I think from the outside it was a lot of music. I can't appreciate how much music it was because I was living it, but our family is just so freaking musical that it's very deeply embedded.
When did you pick up your first instrument?
I played piano in first or second grade or whatever, and then I played clarinet in middle school, and then I started playing bass sometime in high school.
Did you do the thing where you start high school bands? Were your first bands with your brother? I guess there's a two-year age difference?
Yeah, I was mostly just playing along with Wynn stuff.
The story of Wynn sort of moving to Montreal and the beginning of Arcade Fire, they're pretty well documented. You went to Northwestern.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about growing up in Texas and I guess how you found yourself at Northwestern and then in Arcade Fire? Because they seem like pretty different routes.
So I was in Texas until I was 15, just suburban Texas.
Yep.
And then at 15, I went to boarding school for high school in New Hampshire, a place called Phillips Exeter.
Was that a decision is that something you wanted to do? Like, how did that come about?
My dad went there.
Oh, okay.
And both Wynn and I were kind of happy to go. I mean, we went when we were 15, and it's about the time when you're like, this town sucks. So
I'm getting out.
Which everyone feels about it wherever they are, but it happened to coincide with actually getting out and going to a really amazing school. I mean, it's really intense. It's boarding school, so you're locked in with everybody. So the highs are high and the lows are low. But it was a really amazing experience. And then graduated from high school and went to college in Chicago.
Yeah.
Which is cold and dark. And then Win ended up in Montreal in about the year 2000, and I visited a few times back and forth. I took a semester off my second year of university rather. My second year, I took a semester off and came up to Montreal and lived for 6 months, and we started Funeral then. And then just the timing worked out where Funeral came out my senior fall.
Right.
So I just had a hectic senior year of college.
I guess while you were there, though, I mean, was the goal always to be a musician, or were you interested in other things? Was the band sort of something where you were like, yeah, I'll kind of do this and we'll make a record, or were you like, I want this to be my life?
No, I mean, that's why I took the time to go to Montreal for 6 months, because I was like, it'd be stupid not to play in a band with my brother if we have this opportunity, and I think it's good. And then I didn't stay because I was like, oh, it'd be so stupid not to finish college just because a college degree will probably come in handy. But haven't needed it so far. But no, it's the timing worked out very luckily. Like if I was a year younger and I'd had another year of college, I would have had to decide whether to go join Arcade Fire in Montreal or go to school. But it was just like an extra 4 months. So I was like, I'll just finish all this stuff and then come to Montreal.
I guess, 2 years can seem like a lot when you're younger, I guess. But had you guys been close growing up the whole time? To stay in contact, I guess once you get to that age, too.
We got closer once Win left the house.
Classic. Typical of most brothers.
Yeah. Siblings.
Yeah.
Sister.
Yep.
We've got a pretty good family, so we weren't like estranged or anything. But once he was out of the house, then I think we started to realize how much we had in common, and then musically we had a lot in common as well. So that proceeded from there. So I was always kind of the fifth Beatle for a long time,
right,
until I moved up to Montreal proper.
So you're the manager right next to him.
Yeah.
No, George Martin. Which is the fifth Beatle?
I think you're thinking of Stu Sutcliffe.
I'm thinking.
No, you're thinking of Pete Best. Actually, there's a lot of
There's a lot of fifth.
Yeah.
I thought I was Nyoko.
So shifting gears a bit, you and Owen Pallett were nominated for an Oscar for the Her Score, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Had you worked in film before? Was it something you pursued, or was it just a fortuitous opportunity? How does something like that even come about? Because it seems so kind of ominous and.
Well, so the whole band, Arcade Fire and Owen did the soundtrack. And,
okay.
And me and Owen got the nomination because they only nominate 2 people. But it wasn't crazy that I ended up driving the project ultimately, because we were finishing Reflector and Win and Regine were having a baby, and it was really intense to do a film with the director.
So you're there the day-to-day, you're sort of...
So I was very in it and writing a lot of the music. But there's a lot that's the whole band, and there's a lot that's just Owen, and there's a lot, it's very collaborative. But yeah, the band has been friends with Spike for a long time. Since kind of Funeral days. I think he came to some shows in New York, and
real early on.
When he was working on Wild Things, he would play Funeral on set a lot, and he did a short film for us for The Suburbs, and a music video for The Suburbs, and so yeah, we've been kind of back and forth a lot. And then we just having the opportunity to work on a Spike Jonze science fiction movie is yes, we'll work on that.
Right.
And we knew the timing would be gnarly, but it was worth it.
So sort of being friends with him and having a bit of a working relationship with him before you do a full score, was it intimidating working with him? How hands-on is he when it's something like that?
He's very hands-on, but we are also more hands-on than your average movie composer.
Sure.
Most times a music person will get a 90 to 100% completed film and just all right, put some music in there. All right, make it 2 minutes shorter. All right, more emotional. No, slightly less emotional. There you go. Here's your Oscar. So we were there, Win and Regine were in his apartment when he was working on the first draft, and then we sent him music before he even started filming, just based on a couple conceptual shots and knowing the plot of the film. And he would call up and be like, hi, I'm in Shanghai. In 2 days, we're filming this scene on the beach. Just kind of like their first date-ish. So, send me a bunch of music that feels like someone's first date on the beach. Wow. And, so we sent him, a bunch of music, and then there's a really amazing music producer on the project as well. This guy named Ren Kleiss, who's done all the David Fincher films with Trent Reznor and Attic and all that. Super talented. So he can, he would take stuff and chop it up and be like, now recreate this. He'd be like, okay, I see what you're saying here.
Oh, that's interesting. So he'd almost give you examples of where they were thinking, and
so like say for the beach scene,
yeah,
Regine sent him 6 pieces, and he liked one, but the one he liked was 20 seconds long. So Ren cut it up to make it 2.5 minutes, and then I took that and wrote a 2.5 minute piece, and
based
on that 30, but a coherent, not just like a clipped up 15-second loop.
Yeah.
So then I wrote like a coherent 2.5 minute piece, and then they edited the scene so it was 3 minutes, and then Owen took a stab at it, and then I took a stab at what Owen had done and tried to reinterpret it in a specific way. And so it was kind of this crazy, this just a real crazy collaboration process extended over a long amount of time.
We're going through all of these different sort of like reimaginings and sort of like...
Because they shot the film in 40 days or thereabouts, 40 days of shooting. Yeah. And we sent them the music before they shot. And then I think it was 18 months of editing or something, or 13 months of editing. And then they shot more stuff at the end.
And they switched the actors, too.
And they completely switched the voice. So it was a long post-production, which I didn't know was strange, but I guess it's strange. But it worked.
Pretty good movie.
Pretty good movie.
Yeah. Once you got in, were you like, there's a lot more work than I thought it would be? Or was it about what you'd imagined?
It was a lot more. It was very thorny. Just because you're watching the film, you're trying to connect with these characters, and then you feel like you have the connection, and then someone else comes in the room and is like, "Oh no, that's not it." And you're like, but I really felt something. He's like, "No, it's too sad." Like, there's nothing sad about this music. Yeah, but it's got a piano in it, so it's sad. Like, what do you think the piano's intrinsically sad? Like, obviously. Like, oh, okay, I will play it on a synthesizer. Oh, synthesizer's too cold. Oh, but a synthesizer's so warm and analog. Oh no, too Blade Runner. Like, okay, I will play it on bass. Yeah.
They love it. Nailed it. Yeah.
It's so
subjective.
It's so subjective.
Yeah.
It's everyone's. You realize how idiosyncratic your musical vocabulary is and how idiosyncratic everyone else's vocabulary is. It's terrifying.
Right. Were you sort of like, are you a big fan of movies in general, or did you see it more as like another music project, or were you like, this is cool, I get to work in the movies?
No, I love movies.
Yeah.
It was really exciting. And just because Spike is so exciting, like what he's doing is so exciting and of the moment and very present that I felt really lucky to work on it.
And then it resulted, obviously, in the Oscar nomination, which that's really fascinating.
Not
I guess,
bad.
This whole thing? But I guess you guys, it was a collaborative thing, but I thought it was kind of fascinating that maybe you'd gotten an Oscar nom as the younger brother, but I guess now it's sort of all of your Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
But speaking of...
No, it's mine.
Yeah, no,
it's mine.
It's Will's, baby.
I know, and it's to a certain extent.
Yeah. He gets a little piece of that.
Is Spike like an authoritative guy, like when he's like organizing things as a director? Like, what's his temperament like? Like, whether it's like on set, I guess you weren't on set much, but like in the room.
He's very, very gentle,
okay.
But he wants to get what he wants, but it takes him a while to figure out what he wants, and he wants to figure out what he wants in conversation with people, and in conversation with the film he's making. So he'll make the film, and then he'll be like, "Oh wait, no, it needs something else here," and then it was a very gentle process, but you know, it was like the gopher digging that hole. It's like, I'm gonna keep digging. I don't hate anyone.
What I was going to mention was with the brother dynamic, you know, there's that competitive thing that brothers have. Then there's also that sort of, like you said, as you got older, it's like, oh, we have more in common than we don't, and we're the only two people that probably know exactly how we, you know, our personal experience growing up. Do you find that there's a competitive streak, you know, being in sort of a collaborative as well, though?
There hasn't really been a competitive streak. Because I'm so nice.
Your temperament doesn't allow for such petty things.
Yeah. No, it's been remarkably good-natured the whole time. Because we fundamentally know that the other person is not a crazy person, even when they're acting crazy. It's like, oh no, I know that that is rooted in something, and I know it actually what it's rooted in because we've been hanging out for like 32 years now.
Yeah, yeah. Did you find that like sort of having the same, I guess growing up, did you guys have the same sort of like artistic temperaments? Like your influences the same? Do you gravitate towards the same things? Like did you like the same bands? Or was it almost like a divide?
We like a lot of the same core bands, and then the fringes are quite different.
Right.
And I think temperamentally we're quite different. I trace it back to that he is taller. No, he's a little bit more plow forward, and he's more choleric, and I'm more melancholic.
Okay.
To use a medieval terms, we have different balances of fluids or whatever it was called. Our humors are different.
Gotcha. Getting back to policy and stepping outside of like, a juggernaut like Arcade Fire.
Juggernaut.
Exploring your own voice, that can be exciting, but it can also be like really intimidating. Like you said, the stakes are high, putting yourself out there. How have you found the process of sort of creating, releasing, and now touring it?
I've loved it. It's been very, very fun and rewarding, and I feel I have grown as a human. No, it's good. The high stakes has been pleasant because it means you don't ignore people, and the actual communication around it, like playing music for people and talking to people about it and doing interviews, has all been really great and has been in a large part edifying. And thus far I've been able to avoid the soul-crushing internet search results game. But maybe I'll get there. Give me a couple weeks.
Yeah. Have you always been comfortable sharing your creative? Like, like if say, when you're first screening this record or sort of playing it for people, like can you be in the room with people hearing it for the first time, or do you have that thing where it's like, I can't really watch people consuming it?
This time around it was very easy for some reason. I enjoyed it. I don't know why that is, but I'm sure at some point I'll freak the F out.
You can swear on the podcast.
You can get it.
Freak the fart out.
Yeah, we'll have to put the disclaimer at the top.
Yeah, that will bleep that.
Yeah, put a little E. No, it was very easy this time. Because, part of it was the project. I knew I didn't have a lot of time, and I knew I had songs that I liked, and I have no confidence problem. So I was like, oh, these are good. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Do you want to listen to something good, or do you want to listen to something bad? Oh, you want to listen to something good? Here's my record.
That's probably a wonderful sort of trait to have, I guess, if you're going to go forward and put yourself out there.
Yeah. And then at some point, I'm sure that foundation will collapse, and I'll be like a heaping pile of tears. I'm like, why don't you like me, bro? The chorus is so catchy. Do you want me to add another synth bass or something, or what can I do? Do you remix it?
Have you always sort of been confident like that? Is that relatively new, or is it something you developed, or were you just sort of like, I'm going to put it out there and I'm not too concerned?
My bar for art is both incredibly low. I think of it as incredibly low, but I think it's pretty high. But all it just needs to have one good thing about it. Like there's a lot of movies I like that it's just has one good performance, or it has one really good scene, and the rest of the movie is so boring and awful, but it just has one thing, and then you're like, that's great.
It justifies.
If you get an album with 3 good songs on it, it's that's A plus, A double plus. It had 3 good songs on it. If it has 1 good song on it, you're like, that's a pretty good song. I'm not mad you put that out. But I also think that most albums have 0 good songs on them. So I was confident that I had at least 3 good songs on this album. So I'm like, this is an A double plus. This should get every Grammy because there's 3 good songs on it. This is as many good songs as the Taylor Swift album. And that's a great album. A double plus. It has at least 3 good songs on it. So that's my bar. Just very. There's the classic, I think it's Howard Hawks, but a great movie is 3 great scenes and no bad scenes. That's what a great movie is. And you're like, okay, yeah,
I can make that record.
But then it's actually quite hard to cross. But, I currently believe that I'm crossing it. Right. And in 20 years I'll look back and be like, oh, what an idiot. What a fool he was. Should have gone into paper.
We have 3 minutes left, by the way. I just got something in the ear.
Oh, see, that's a good producer right there. You don't need a fake board at all.
Yeah. No, but I have lots of technology.
Yeah.
Someone in the other room is like, Max, wrap it up.
I guess I was going to ask about the video for Anna. Was that your concept? I mean, just being so hands-on. It's such an interesting video. It's a one-shotter, some graphics, just you sort of performing.
Yeah.
Is that your concept? Was it the director's concept?
I was the director.
You directed it.
So it was
your
the director's
idea.
concept.
It was the director's concept. How did you feel about the director's concept?
I thought it was very easy.
How was the director's temperament on set?
He was a little bit in a hurry the whole time because the campfire was on and he wanted to make s'mores.
How many takes did he demand?
The first night I did 3 or 4 takes in the grass, and then I went and ate my s'mores. And then the next night...
2-night shoot.
I was 3-night shoot.
3-night shoot, okay.
Where was it?
But like of 15 minutes each. 3 nights of 15 minutes each.
From work, yeah.
It was in rural Arizona, like east of Tucson. Cochise Stronghold. I was just on vacation.
Nice.
Had a tripod.
Just hanging
Had a
out.
nice lens on a fine camera. Our video person would have had me rent a nicer camera because the Canon SLR thing's a little bit played and it looks a little bit like 2009 now. But anyway, it was so much lighter. I knew how to use it. So yeah, I just had the camera. I knew I wanted to do a video. I worked on a couple more complicated things, and then I was just watching takes, and there were 3 or 4 full takes that were pretty satisfying, and I considered editing them, and then I was like, no, it's better as a performance. And you get the arc of the song in a full performance, and then I was like, I'm gonna put some doodads on top.
Yeah. More complete piece. I guess
and then it's like the best music video of this year. Easily. It's like at least top 10.
Yep.
And certainly top 50.
Top 50.
And probably top 100.
A++ record. And then what would you give the video?
Like a 9.9
9.9.
out of 8.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
This is the part of the show that Max calls the dessert. Our friend and pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, is here.
Hello.
Shane,
Hey.
Shane,
How's it going?
How's it going?
Well,
Great?
yeah.
Awesome.
So Shane, you regale us with a story about being a weirdo teenager.
I think I was a normal teenager.
I don't know about that.
Max is referring to last week's episode where Shane talked about meeting with Ashley Madison, founder Noel Biederman.
Yes.
And
if you haven't listened to that story, podcasters, go back because it's pretty up.
Yeah. Max was very concerned about that being released, by the way.
Well, that's a whole other story. But what have you been up to this week?
Our friend got married, basically, and I'm back from that feeling good. It was my first time really integrating girlfriend Alex.
Shane told us that he was in like with a new girl named Alex, and
Things are heating up even more.
Well, you brought her to the wedding
Yeah.
we were all at this weekend.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
looking good.
She was almost too good though. Like I was a lot more fired up about this a couple days ago.
What were you fired up about?
Well, this kind of annoys me when you bring a new girlfriend and like you integrate it into the friends, just like because then your guy friends, girlfriends all get to meet her.
Okay.
And then inevitably they like a couple were coming up and they're like, "Oh, you better treat this one good." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then it's like, "Yeah, she's a real keeper." I'm like, "Oh yeah." And then this one girlfriend, like my friend's girlfriend, who I know the least, like I barely talk to her. She comes up and is inordinately rude to me. And she's like, "You'll never do better than Alex." And I'm like, haha, yeah, tell me about it. Like Alex
Hold
is
on,
sitting
she just
right
came up to you straight up and
Yeah.
just dropped that
And
line.
Alex hears this.
Yeah, so I'm a little like humiliated, but I'm like, this will pass. And she comes up again and she's like, "No, you in particular will never do better than her." And I'm like, that's so mean. Because I don't want to say, like, how do you fight that? I don't want to say, I can do better than this. Alex is sitting right there. But, like...
It is an insulting thing to say to anybody.
Yeah, and then she's like, "No, it's a compliment to." I'm like, "No, it's not." She's like, "Yeah, it is to her." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I found out Alex was offended by it too, because she's like, it made her feel like she's dating some loser or something.
Feel like.
And I feel like it's kind of like, thanks, Mike, not helping the national podcast, but international on the web. But I feel like it's kind of like pushing women's rights back like 20 years too, in a way, because
Walk us through that.
no, hear me out. Because it's all about looks. Right? Like, what does she think? I'm only into Alex. Like, if anything, the prettier the girl, the worse they are, right? Like,
You are a women's rights advocate.
no, but I just feel like it was all based on aesthetic value. And to me, and like, why not just like say I'm ugly? Why does she have to find like some clever way to say that Alex is so much hotter than me? I didn't like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found it very insulting. And it's what's insulting too. This is the hunkiest I've ever been in my life. Like I can't do better, and that's the thing. It was so insulting.
Shane, have you seen any movies or heard any good tunes lately?
You have one job on this show, and every week you fail to deliver.
I did. Okay, yeah, I saw a couple movies, but we want to talk about Blue is the Warmest Color.
All three of us have seen that film.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was good. I'm not used to talking about movies. I've only done it one other time.
Okay, to give the viewers some context, Blue is the Warmest Color is a French film, and it basically follows this girl from kind of like high school, grade 11, grade 12, all the way till she's like basically a young adult, 26, 27, and it's sort of like her journey through life. She's sort of at some point she starts, she's dating boys, and then she starts to realize she's maybe attracted to women. She's bisexual, lesbian, and it's sort of her like discovery of that. But then also just sort of going through life, relationships, all that stuff. It's a long movie. It's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's
It came out a couple
It's
years
actually
ago.
3 hours.
3 hours.
Yeah.
And this movie made a huge impact when it premiered at Cannes. Is it Cannes or Con?
Who knows?
Whatever. Because it's so explicit and graphic, the sex scenes.
Yeah, it's one of those movies you almost, even though it is 3 hours, you need to watch it twice. Because like the first time you watch it, you like I'm sure you jerked off to it. Sorry. But it's true.
What, Shane? What?
Like-
Come on.
Max, did you?
I watched it with Lauren, actually.
Yes or no?
No comment.
Did you, Mike, though, honestly?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Which I did not do while
From
watching the
answer-
movie.
The first half is where it gets very sexual.
Yeah. As she's discovering herself.
And I thought the realism in this movie is insane. Like, it just felt so real. So you get invested very early on in the love story. You're basically watching this girl grow up.
I thought she was obviously, I think, had an amazing performance throughout. And even when she cried like the whole movie basically, and she was always a very snotty crier.
And it was how you cry.
It was how you cry. She was amazing. Like and like she's like kind of a gross crier.
I've seen
It's
you
like
both
when you
cry.
see like Bieber go to the ground at the VMAs, you're like, shut up. And then you see the girl and you're like, wow, that's how I would cry. And that's how I have cried during a breakup or whatever. The first half of the movie is really good, but the second half of the movie is unbelievably great. And it's so real. And I know I said I cried at the Backstreet Boys movie, and I did, but I was kind of in a bit of a mood. Like I was hungover when I saw the Backstreet Boys movie. This movie is dead sober, totally into it, and I like cried while watching it. It's
Oh my god, yeah, you're crying.
so relatable.
Yeah.
It's very, very emotional movie.
When Lauren broke up with me for about a week, she used the line from the movie because she knew we'd both seen the movie. She said, I forget what the line. She's like,
I thought you were going to say where the girl's like, eat my which was my favorite line from the movie.
So you would recommend Blue is the Warmest Color.
Indeed.
What out of 10 would you give it?
Jeez, I hate to be an easy critic, but I say another 10. No, honestly, though, like, it's one of the best movies, and I think you said it might have even been the best movie you've ever seen.
I didn't say ever seen. I said in the last
Greg
like
said that. I'm
last,
paraphrasing.
yeah, no. In the last couple of years, it's like one of the best movies I've seen.
It's so awesome, that movie. Yeah, like, if you've ever cheated on a person, and then they've caught you, and then you kind of beg for them back and had a moment like that, which, I don't know, I know I've had a couple of those. Not proud. It's like the worst. It's the worst feeling in the world. And you just, if you've ever had an experience like that, you can relate to it on such an intense level. it's like I was like bawling. Like I've never cried before from a movie or anything. It was like so intense.
You know,
very cathartic.
Another thing the movie does really well is just like sort of just like the uncertainty young people have of like when they first fall in love and just how nervous you are and how you don't know how to react to things. It was just like I just like the mood of her like growing up. Like I feel like I really identify with.
Yeah.
Or when you're first in your big relationship and things inevitably do kind of go in the boredom.
Yeah.
Right? But you misconstrue that for that you're falling out of love, so you kind of get interested in someone else.
Yeah.
But you don't realize everything's inevitably headed to that comfortable phase regardless of what happens. So you kind of don't appreciate the relationship as much until it's gone, and then you're like, I had something really good.
Apparently that director is an intense mofo. Like he was, like made them cry.
Yeah. They're literally like licking each other's in the movie.
Yeah.
Like they are like you can't fake that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking from experience.
Tried.
All right, that's enough.
That's our episode. We would like to thank our feature guest, Will Butler, for coming on. We would like to thank my little brother, Greg Veerman, for coming on. You can follow the Mike on Much podcast at Mike on Much on Twitter and Instagram. All of the artwork for the Mike on Much podcast is done by Jenna Gregory at jennasdoodles.com. The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman, and I am your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.